In case you didn't watch my last video, in that one I took 8 unclear filters, 36 millimeters unframed in these beautiful boxes and moved them in a very daring operation into a Moravian 10-slot filter wheel. Now, spoiler alert, the operation was a full success. I was able to move all 8 filters undamaged into the filter wheel, but I encountered a huge issue which is not specific to Moravian, but can happen to you with any filter wheel, but is not widely known actually. And so we will look into that, what it is, how you can prevent it, right after the trailer. Hey, this is View into Space. I'm Sascha from Switzerland, so grüezi miteinander and thanks for watching my channel. Okay, so let's continue the story. So I was obviously really excited having now the whole image train ready with this beautiful camera, with this beautiful filter wheel. Everything was set for my first narrowband mono shooting. And there was a clear night and I shot with it and everything went fine and the exposures looked amazing. So the next thing I did was obviously taking flats. So I used Nina, the flat assistant, I put a flat panel on top and I started with red, blue, green and so on. And it all also went like a charm and I started to look at the flats and they looked fine. And only when I arrived at the last one, at the S2, suddenly something looked completely off. And you see that right here. There was a huge light leak coming in from the upper left. So I was absolutely confused. I did not really know what's going on here. And I posted it to my Patreon account. I said, guys, what would you do? What do you feel? What's going on? And the ideas that came was obviously the filter is broken, that I actually entered the filter tilted so that the light could actually leak under the filter through. Then there was a suggestion that actually the filter wheel would not be tight and light could actually leak somehow into it. But I kind of checked all of that and it still didn't make sense. Until someone proposed, why don't you take the filter and just move it around? And to understand that, let's have a look at the filter wheel, how it was. As you can see, I had 8 filters, 10 slots, so quite conveniently, I used LRGB R+, so the broadband filters, then an empty slot, and then I grouped the 3 narrowband filters, HA, O3, S2, and then at the end, an empty slot again. So from that point, I could actually move one of the filters into an empty slot. And so I took the S2 and I moved it to slot number 10, just to see what's happening. And then the miracle happened. I took flats again, and now the light leak was coming from the other side, and everything was clear. So what was happening is that through the empty slot, light was actually leaking through into the light path of the narrowband filter. Obviously, when you're shooting normally, this doesn't really matter. There's so few light, this is not visible. But with the strong light that you actually need to do flats with an S2, it was enough. And it made it absolutely impossible to take flats. And now, knowing that, I also inspected the HA filter and I also saw it there because also there, neighboring was an empty slot. So the mitigation action was pretty easy. I needed filter dummies, opaque filters who wouldn't leave any light through. One of my Patreons, Harry, was so kind to 3D print these filters and to send it to me, and the next day I had it. I entered them and the issue was solved. So the interesting point is, now that I communicated that again to my Patreon community, they suddenly came up with, oh yeah, I have a Zero filter wheel and the same thing happened to me. Obviously it might change how many filter slots you have, what size of filters you have, if they're unframed, if they're framed. But I think it is crucial to know that if you leave filter slots in a filter wheel open, you might have the risk of a light leak. And just if that applies to you, if you have some empty slots in the filter wheel, please inspect your flats of the filters which are close to these empty slots. Now, last but not least, I want to give a huge kudos to Moravian. I obviously did report that immediately back also to Moravian, and they reacted instantly. A day later, they came back to me and confirmed that starting 2 weeks later, which is already past now, each and every filter wheel will now be equipped with 2 opaque filters. So these are the original Moravian filters, which they will now add to each and every filter wheel. And I think that they immediately acknowledged the issue and reacted. I think that really is amazing. I hope this was helpful. To belong always to the first ones to hear such tips and tricks, please subscribe. And if you want to actively participate in such discussions, please have a look at my Patreon channel. Link is below in the description. See you next time, and clear skies.